2015, a traffic jam on a Beijing highway blocked an entire 50-lane highway. In the 1980s, a traffic jam on a French autoroute highway was so severe that vehicles were stuck for 175 kilometers. It took many hours to clear this traffic jam from Paris to Lyon. Similarly, in many parts of the world, including Germany and the United States, there have been reports of vehicles stuck for 12 days. But the traffic jam I will talk about today will surely surprise you. This traffic jam does not last for a few days, weeks, or months, but for a long time, amazing era continued for years. The world's longest and most difficult traffic jam was witnessed in this place where the ships and thousands of kilos of them were stuck for the next 8 years. It can take several days at most to open a traffic jam on highways and expressways, but it is up to someone to open a jam. Let's know the interesting story of this unique and longest-running traffic jam in the world. We all know that the Suez Canal is considered the jewel of the shipping and trading industry. Before 1869, when the shipping industry did not have the gift of the Suez Canal, ships between Europe and Asia had to go all the way to Europe by boat through the African continent. The Suez Canal changed this journey of the shipping industry in days, and now ships from Europe can reach Asia directly by reaching the Red Sea via the Media Rail. By using this spirit, each ship has saved a distance of about 10,000 kilometers. But apart from this, many pirate gangs in African waters used to rob the ships passing through here, among which West African pilots are quite famous in the Ottoman Empire. These pirates used to forcibly stop the ships and loot millions of dollars of goods. They used to make their own money by making mustaches. The service of the service had worked to protect these ships from pirates along with the long distance. This is the incident of June 5, 1967, when 15 cargo ships entered the Mediterranean side of the Suez Canal early in the morning. Normally ships take 12 hours to cross this canal, but they had no idea that their miserable journey was going to last for years. This was a time when there was already some tension between Egypt and Israel, and both the giants were preparing for war against each other. Now if you look at the map, this line is the model of Israel and Egypt. The Suez Canal is very far from this border, a poor 200 kilometers. This entire section is also called the Sinai Balance because they were very far from the border. That is why neither Egypt nor Israel cared about the increasing tension with Israel for 15 years. But something happened that day that the boiling lava erupted from the tension, and suddenly the war began. Israeli forces launched a surprise attack on Egypt. Within an hour, several rockets and planes were fired around the Suez Canal. The situation became so bad that Egyptian forces immediately closed the Suez Canal on both sides. Fierce clashes continued for the next 6 days, but Israeli forces succeeded in capturing the entire Sinai Peninsula. Now the new border between Israel and Egypt had been established, and the Suez Canal was the only thing that separated these two countries from each other. This was a very bad defeat for Egypt. Israeli forces did not cross the canal and advance further, so Egypt set up fortifications on both sides of the Suez Canal. They destroyed their own bridges and installed mines all over the canal. The only reason for doing so was so that no one, including Israel, could use the canal. Meanwhile, 15 cargo ships were stranded in the Great Butter Lake. The Ottoman army was to their west, and the Israeli forces were to their east. They could neither return to the Mediterranean nor cross the Red Sea. These ships had no other option but to wait at the same location. In addition to them, there were several hundred other ships that were blocked in the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Everyone was hoping that the matter might be resolved, but the matter was getting more serious. Days, weeks, and then months passed, but the tension between Egypt and Israel could not be resolved. The whole world was suffering from all this. Shipments were delayed and freight charges were increased many times over. Ships that used to use Switzerland because of this war, while the whole world was facing new challenges. 15 ships stuck in a traffic jam, and the cargo in them were caught in their own trouble. Among them were British, German, Swedish, Holtz, French, and Crane, Czechoslovak, and American ships. Then, after months, when it became clear to them that this problem was not going to end so quickly, the shipping companies recalled most of the glue, while only 10 people were left on each ship for maintenance. Every second or third month, this group of 10 people was also changed, and a new group was sent, just in the hope that one day they might be able to get their stranded ships out of here. They stayed together for so long. Friendships grew in the group of 15 ships. They also arranged activities to get themselves out of this depression. A small church was opened on the German ship where all the Christians gathered every Sunday, and a movie light was arranged every day on the green ship. Pool parties were held on the sweater ship, and football was played on the Brit ship. They even took a boat and held the Peichu Beach Olympic Games here. Named Water Lake and Pix 1968, the ships remained in the same place for years, but eventually a layer of mud settled on them, as they were neutral ships and had nothing to do with the war. That is why Israel had no objection to providing them with food or water. 6 years later, in 1973, the war intensified again, but this time the crews were led by Egypt. Egypt entered the Sinai Peninsula with all its might and pushed the Israeli forces deep inside. There were heavy attacks from both sides, but this time an Israeli rocket unintentionally hit the stranded American ship, and that was enough. This week-long war resulted in thousands of casualties on both sides. Finally, on October 24, 1973, a ceasefire agreement was signed between the two. Yes, both countries started calling back their respective groups. The 6-year war was over now, but for the ships stuck in traffic jams. As the war is still going on, the Suez Canal had been a constant source of concern for ships, planes, and rockets. In addition, Egypt had also installed mines here, which is why it was still not possible for ships to leave here. So it took Egypt the next 2 years to clean the canal thoroughly. June 1975 was the day when the Suez Canal was finally free after 8 years. After living together for such a long time, the time had finally come for 14 ships to leave the Suez Canal. So, when they returned to their countries, they were given a warm welcome. After being closed for 8 years, traffic in the Suez Canal resumed. Such a large amount of traffic has never been seen before in history, nor has there been any since. On the other hand, relations between Egypt and Israel are improving. Israel returned the entire Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, and Egypt was the first Arab country in which Israel was allowed to enter.